Hello everyone, welcome back. If you have not been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books. There's been a lot of thinking about whether I wanted to do this video because I wasn't sure how much I'd be able to say. So I did a bit of research into what other things have been said about it in order to figure out if this was something that was worth doing, but I decided I'd do it anyway. I am going to talk about Paranormal Activity at Leeds Playhouse. That is the programme. It's a very small programme because, as with stuff like 222, A Ghost Story and The Mousetrap in London, there is a thing to kind of keep quiet about what happens in this show. So I can give you limited information on that. It's a small cast, there's only 4 people in it. I say 4. So you've got the main couple, which are James and Lou, played by Patrick Husinger and Melissa James. And then you've got Coral Ann, played by Pippa Winslow, and Etheline Cotgrave, played by Jackie Morrison. Admittedly, I've never seen the film. It's on my list of horror movies that I need to watch. But yeah, I've never seen the film, and when going into it, I did actually ask some people, is it worth me watching the film before I see the show? And they were just like, it's not necessary at all. So it was like, okay. So I didn't. Posters going into the show just say, shush, keep quiet, no photos, no videos. And when you go into the Courtyard Theatre, it is just a black curtain in, so you can't see the stage. I worked it 3 times, and all those times I was inside the auditorium, so I got to see it. I will say there was a night when this was on, when I was actually working in the Quarry Theatre. I came out of the Quarry auditorium to do something and inadvertently caught the very last 30 seconds of this, so I knew what happened right at the end, but it didn't really spoil it for me because it was a very, very small moment in what is a very, very packful ending. I'll just say that. At the beginning of the play, you have the 2 characters. You've got the couple. They are an American couple who have moved to London for a restart, a refresh. The horrors that they thought they were escaping when they moved from Chicago to London appear to have followed them. It is a very jumpy show, as you can imagine, but it is done very cleverly in the way they give you moments to kind of recover from what you have witnessed, seen, processing. I will say, working at the very beginning of the show is in complete darkness. A very unique thing about this show, I'm sure it happens on like other shows that are done in this kind of style, because of how dark the show gets at certain points in like the preset, you know, so they're like going dark when they get ready to cue everything up. And then there was a moment of going darker, which I always thought was quite funny before they did the preset for the show, of like bringing the curtain down so that everybody could come in. So I always found that quite entertaining, of going darker, and then heads on stage as they brought the black scrim down. The black scrim was used very cleverly throughout the show, turning it into a kind of it's one story, but it has sequences to it, I guess is the best way to describe it. Because I was working it, I feel like I viewed it in a different way to what a regular audience member was going through, because obviously when you're working it, you get to see the show, but you are also keeping an eye on the audience, because with a show like this, it was like no photos at all, no videos. They've kept the set completely under wraps of what it actually looks like. There's only actually been one image, I think, shared by the Playhouse, which is just of the couple in the kitchen. I don't think there's any problem in saying this. The set is basically a house, a full house on stage, a fully working house, and it just means for some epic moments, as you can see like what's happening in one room while somebody else is in another room, and it was just so good, it was so clever, it was so scary, and also incredibly funny at times. It really does a great way of balancing out those really dark, scary, jumpy moments with a bit of lightheartedness. Like, it starts off with James on stage talking to his mother and talking about the differences between American life and UK life. It's TK Maxx over here, not TJ Maxx, because I know that Patrick is American. I think Melissa is English. The one that I got to see the most was probably Pippa, I think, who plays Etheline, because she'd always come out while we were tidying up. So yeah, I think I saw her the most after the show. But yeah, it's just so clever. never having seen something like this on stage, really, because I saw The Woman in Black in London when I was a teenager, when I was in college, and that was that was brilliant. I still have the image in my mind of just the rocking chair rocking by itself when she disappears, and it's just like, But to see something like this focused on like making you jump. And the second time I worked it, I did have a woman behind me who was screaming quite a lot in the jumps, and so I'd be there thinking, I know what's coming. Is she going to scream at this one? There was also a couple of little delayed reactions as well. I did find it quite funny in talking about this show with colleagues, because there's talks of like the spare room that might be becoming a nursery, and it almost became like the Scottish play. Like, it's not the nursery, it's the spare room. Part of their story is whether they want to start a family. But yeah, I'm trying to be very careful in what I say. I love the fact that with subsequent viewings, you realise how much foreshadowing there is, and the things that you miss at the beginning, because I definitely missed a lot that first time I worked it, because there was two girls who would quick run to the loo just before we were getting ready to close the doors, and we were literally just starting the show as they came in, and they were to go up onto Z, which is the top level, and I was just like going, I've got 2 seats right here, if you could just stay here for a few minutes and I'll let you know when you can go up. And they were just like, why can't we go up? And it was just like, because it's about to get very dark very quickly and you won't be able to see where you're going, and I'm not allowed to have any lights on during this bit, because it's after that first few minutes of darkness that we have our late covers appointment, we can actually take people in. They do not want any lights on inside the auditorium during those first 4 minutes, because it's really setting the scene and getting you into that mind space of preparing for those jump scares throughout the show. But yeah, it was really clever. There's some really clever sequences of almost magic in the show as well, of like people appearing in different places and seemingly impossible things that are happening, and you're just looking at it thinking, how? My duty manager Phil, after the first time I worked it, he actually gave me a couple of secrets of the show of how certain things were done, and only one of them did I actually have figured out properly. The other ones, it was just like, it was just completely different as to what I thought was happening. So yeah, a lot of the time with the special effects in this show, it's not what you think it is. So after you've watched it and you're just there thinking, oh, I think I figured out how they do that, there's only one of those that you might actually be right. All the other ones, it was a case of I was not thinking that was how they did it. It was so clever, so creepy. As I said, it had some genuinely funny moments throughout it, and I loved the collective moments in the audience of, ooh, as they figured things out, or the collective jump at one of the funniest, which is when a phone rings that is used as a jump scare, and yeah, the fact that they jump at the sound of the phone, and then they also laugh to themselves because they've realised they've jumped at a phone and not something that's actually designed to make them scared. Does this actually tell you anything? I don't know. Because obviously I can't say much about it. I don't know what the plans are for this show beyond the Playhouse, but I do hope it has a life, because it was brilliant. And for my third and final time working it, I got some tickets for my parents to come see it, just thinking, I think this might be something they'd enjoy. And my mum and dad always say that I'm always very good at figuring out which ones they'll enjoy, because I don't think they've ever seen a bad thing at the Playhouse, to be fair. But also, I know my parents' sense of humour. Obviously we have very similar tastes in TV, film, that kind of thing. And also I've caught my parents watching weird things before, and I was just like, I think this might be right up their alley. Even though they haven't seen Paranormal Activity, I have seen them watching some slightly twisted horror things that are just a slightly bit more different, a bit going down like the indie route almost of the indie horror films. Yeah, I just thought it was so clever. In the programme there is an interview with the illusionist Chris Fisher about how they did some things. One of the final questions on his is, how do you think the audience will react to what they see on stage? And he responded, I'm hoping that audiences will experience a huge range of emotions on this show, and I think they will really get drawn into the story of our Paranormal Activity. There are likely to be a few jump scares, and I think people will be taken aback by this house and the people it holds. Because as I said, the set is just a house. So yeah, when you look at the programme, you've got Places Aren't Haunted, People Are, which is a very, very big thing about this show. You've got an interview with the director and the writer, A Collective Sense of Fear. There's also a thing about Ghostlight, gotta love a good Ghostlight, the interview with the illusionist, and then information about the cast and the crew. I have noticed that at the bottom of the cast, with the creative team and the production team, there is a special one at the bottom for appearances, which I think is a really clever way to acknowledge some possible other people in the show. I'll just say that. But also, just before I wrap up, I will say, because I have talked about how I've loved seeing the audience's responses to things happening, but also because of the way the set is on the stage, they built it quite far back so that you've got a really, really good view from pretty much anywhere. But obviously, depending on where you're sat, you will have a better view of certain rooms in the house. So when something happens in one room, you might kind of get a bit of an echo of a gasp as people clock on to what's happening. Like something may be happening in the bathroom and you'll hear the gasp on one side as they see it, and then as that appearance becomes more obvious, you'll hear that oh going across the audience, just because of how that viewing is. Does that make any sense? It's interesting trying to put into words something like this, where there really is so limited information about it online, and the fact that we have been encouraging people to keep the secret. A friend of mine from work, Ben, made it into some of the adverts, doing the whole shh. Once that advert went live with him in it, just everybody was messaging him saying, "Ben, you're famous," because he ended up in the Instagram adverts for it.
Something suspicious is happening in the centre of Leeds. As the sun comes down over Leeds Playhouse, the haunting begins in this world premiere stage adaptation of Paranormal Activity. Whatever happens in the Courtyard Theatre, all those who dare to experience it mustn't tell a soul.
Just so cool, so clever. If you have seen it, it'll be so interesting to see what you thought. Obviously, don't put any spoilers for the show down here, because that's not what this is about. It's just about sharing the fact that I thought this was so cool, so clever. It got me a couple of times, like jumps even when I was working it. And I'd say it's quite funny to think that the ones that really do get you are the ones that aren't actually part of the haunting. I think it's because at the beginning of the show everybody's on tenterhooks waiting to find out what's going on. There is anticipation of something throughout the entire show based on a conversation that the couple have about what might be beyond. But yeah, so you're going through the whole show pretty much waiting for this one moment to kind of come back. It's very clever. It's funny. It was terrifying, it was brilliant, and just having those subsequent views just meant that I was very aware of like the little Easter eggs and the moments of foreshadowing, and realising how each sequence equaled what comes out in the end. Has that made any sense? Have I been secretive enough about this show? That yeah, it was bloody brilliant. It was bloody brilliant. So yeah, that's Paranormal Activity. As I am speaking, they are probably coming to the end of the matinee performance. Or they might be halfway, depending on what time it started. But yeah, their final performance is tonight, as I record this. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for watching. As I said, if you do have any thoughts about the show, don't be afraid to put them in the comments. But do not share any spoilers, please. That's not what this is about. This is just about sharing how clever this show was. And I will say the moment I think gets to me the most, there's one sequence in particular that I found really, really clever. It's probably the most, like, the cleverest thing I've ever seen on stage. And then the other one was the only slightly gory moment in the show, and it's just the way the character says a certain line that gets to me. But yeah. As I said, I hope this show has a life beyond the Playhouse, because I thought it was incredible. I feel like it could do really well in the West End, in amongst 222, A Ghost Story, and other shows that encourage you to be quiet about the end. Paranormal Activity. So thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you next time with another video. Stay safe, everybody. I love you all. Bye!